So super glad to have Michael Go. Is that the proper pronunciation?
Keep going. Keep going. I'll give you a hint.
Goff. Goff. Michael Goff.
There's only 9 ways to pronounce it, so no one
Michael Goff. All right, excellent. And so he is, I guess, the founder of Malware Archaeology, which is kind of cool. He is malware archaeologist, blue team defender, and incident responder. He developed Windows logging cheat sheets to help the industry understand logging. As a speaker in various conferences, he aims to educate attendees on actionable security practices. Michael contributes to the open source project R, or if they're ARTHIR, I'm sure there's something, a way to say that properly, and co-develops tools like LogMD and FileMD. So if you will help me welcome Michael.
How many people here have been to more than 3 InfoSec cons? Okay, so a lot of green people. I've been going to this since it's been up north. If you don't know, which we'll get to, cautionary assurance, this will be in my slides. It'll be posted on Malware Archaeology on SlideShare, so don't worry about taking too many pictures. I'll post this when I get back. But I am a blue team defender ninja, malware archaeologist. I studied archaeology in college. There is no jobs in archaeology in real life. I was in China Lake Naval Weapons Center with PhDs, masters, people with bachelors trying to get their masters, and me as an undergrad, and played golf on a par 100 golf course on a dry lake bed. That's how bored we were, and realized, yeah, this is a great hobby. So it's a hobby, but guess what? I am an archaeologist. I'm a malware archaeologist. Why? I hunt for artifacts of man on computers. That's where that comes from, in case anybody cares. But I'm a logaholic. Hello, my name is Michael. I'm a logaholic. Got to keep you guys awake. It's late in the day. I'm a principal incident response threat hunting engineer. I used to be a consultant. I have given that up. I am going to go back to ownership side as a threat hunter and incident responder and whatnot in the financial sector. So I am with a new firm as of Monday. That's why the name's not up there, because it's not Monday yet. I love properly configured logs. This is one of my early projects. But these cheat sheets, how many people here know about them other than Dave and AJ? But if you don't know about these cheat sheets, as a consultant that does incident response, I can tell you that 99.99% of all my clients, I'm sure there was one that passed it, but I'm pretty sure there wasn't, will not pass what I score these cheat sheets to of what I believe your basic Windows logging should be on workstations or servers. Whether you send that to a SIM's a different argument, but you need to collect it locally for us incident responders. Also an open source fork of Kanza called Arthur, PowerShell remoting. It's a way to be able to utilize small tools, throw them to a bunch of systems on Windows remote PowerShell stuff, and get the native results back, which Kanza couldn't do. And then I am the creator of LogMD and FileMD. This is about the journey of how I came about those tools. FileMD is about to be released. There's a process MD in the works as well. So why this talk? To learn from us incident responders. We're the ones that have lived through it, or people have called us, in my case, to help them live through it. And what we use in the real world and why. And how did I come about to make my own Windows incident response tool? Isn't EDR all the things? That turned out to be not the case, and one of the reasons LogMD happened. This is an attempt to spell out the timeline very quickly so you can see I started back in 1999. Yes, I'm old. I'm going to retire. You guys are going to take over. That's why I want to share this information with you, so hopefully you guys can make better tools or contribute to the tool community. But my first script was in 1999 as a part of Y2K prep. Yes, there was a date problem back in the day before some of you were even born. Screw you, youngins. And I called it Troy.back because I was looking for Trojans. Okay, but that's why I called it that. And then it goes through today and where I'm at. So I'm going to walk you through some stuff. Some of it's completely unrelated, but it actually did have an impact on where I'm at today. Oh, you want me to go back on that one? There you go. Someone's taking a picture of the timeline. So yeah, a lot's happened. Obviously, COVID, that mother effer showed up. So yeah, my first script was created in 1999. I called it Troy. doing it before I partied like 1999. And that's because I was looking for things like AV signatures. We wanted to make sure the AV signatures were up to date, so I wrote some scripts to look for that. I was looking for remnants of the I love you virus. Fortunately, I had implemented a gateway, didn't have a big problem with that, but our acquiring entity, Wells Fargo, did. And so we were concerned as we were connecting that we might get some of that stuff. And that's kind of the stuff I was looking for. I was looking for the known knowns originally, right? Why? Because I had a problem I was trying to solve. There was no tool for it, so I wrote a script. All of you in this room at some point are writing a script or already have. That's a tool, believe it or not, because I have seen some scripts. Arthur is a massive PowerShell script, okay? I didn't write most of it. Dave wrote most of it, and then we forked it and put some additional features in it. But they are scripts, right? They're just massive, but they're tools, right? And this was only the beginning for me. I then went to work for a bank. That's where I wrote Troy, who got bought by Wells Fargo, the big bank. And I left them when they told me I had to go back to San Francisco, living in Utah. It's like, you're going to give me an 8% raise? How about 80? You forgot a zero. It's real expensive in California. And I'm already from there, so no, I'm not going back. So I went to work for HP as a consultant. So that's where I started my consulting journey. I did consulting, assessments, investigations, all the things that we did. I also got involved with the CIS benchmark committees. So committees. Highly recommend everybody does it, and before you do it, just go bang your head against the wall, start practicing. And I did create a hardening methodology off of the CIS benchmarks, meaning I wrote a bunch of scripts. I wrote the Windows one with help of another colleague, and then I had some Solaris guy come in, and an AIX guy come in, and an HPUX. I had no shortage of HPUX experts. And we wrote hardening scripts for all these OSs so that the systems would pass the CIS benchmarks as a hardening thing. It was a big thing in the 90s to try to do that. Auditors would come in and say, you got to do that. Medical, everybody had to do it. And so that was my first foray into kind of tooling a solution for the CIS benchmarks. And as we now know, lots of tools do. They're integrated into configuration management. So the scripts are kind of moot at this point. But I did successfully change the HPUX benchmarks. Their order, 1 through 10 sections, 11 sections, were completely out of whack of all the other UXs in Linux. It made no sense of why they were out of whack. Why that's important is if you write a Unix script, a UX script, and you suddenly want to go to section 10, you got to go down here for UX and back up here for Linux. That was the challenge we were having, so I asked to get it rearranged, no other change. They agreed and let that pass. And then I tried to make progress in Windows. This is one of the things that started my journey down the cheat sheet path, is their inability to make changes to Windows logging and the CIS benchmarks, which today are still what I would consider negligent in regards to the recommendations. It is considered a minimal standard, right? They don't even call it a standard. They say minimum settings. But to me, the settings that are in the benchmarks are negligent. They will not catch anything if you're an investigator. So I also wrote legislation. Something that happened while I was at HP. I got a divorce. And I ended up getting involved with writing legislation, of all things, right? Very odd thing in your InfoSec journey. But the fact that a judge told me if it isn't case law, state law, or statute, don't ask for it, I'm not ordering it, I'm not here to make cutting-edge divorce law, really pissed me off. And, again, I had a problem, I needed to solve it. And that was, I just wanted to have calls with that little girl right there when she was all cute. That's one of our many interviews. Even Geraldo interviewed us for this. It was a real big divorce topic. I toured the country talking at judges and judges conferences and lawyer conferences. My attorney's dad was a state Supreme Court justice in Utah, so that gave me an in to start the presentations. Next thing you know, I've got 7 laws across the nation. I literally changed divorce law worldwide. The laws I wrote were referenced in multiple nations in court cases where parents are trying to fight to get video conferencing based on what was happening here. There's a legal term for it. I can't remember what the name of it, some Latin term, where you can reference another country and or another case's law in another state to justify your position on a topic. That, again, because of all the presentations, look where I'm at now. I'm giving presentations, right? So even this odd thing had something to do with my creation of tooling and being able to speak of it, right? But if you want to know more, hallway con discussion. And then, of course, because of that effort, I ended up writing the first book of Skype. This was before it did video conferencing, right? We all know who Skype is, and Microsoft ended up buying it. I utilized that for audio and NetMeeting. Anybody here remember NetMeeting other than David? I used NetMeeting for the video and Skype for the audio, and that was our solution to talk with my daughter. And side note, nothing related to this, but because I did video conferencing, for those dads out there that might be in this position, I ended up winning custody of my daughter. I traded it basically for in-person time, and then because of my ex-wife's behaviors. So all that experience actually gives you more confidence. These things in life you must build on that says, hey, I can do that. This really applies to taking on an idea like building a tool, right? I did write 2 books. They ended up morphing into other books. That's one of the things in the dummy contract. They can pull chapters out of one book and build a crappy-ass 2nd, 3rd, 4th book. So there are Google Talking. I have chapters in that. My name's on the book. I had nothing to do with writing it, except they stole chapters. But yeah, don't sign the gummy contract. Don Murdoch wrote the Blue Team Handbook. Reach out to him. Self-publish if you're thinking of writing a book, okay? You are your best advertiser. I'm up here talking. If I wrote a book, I'd be presenting it right now. We have Twitter. You get nothing from the publisher. Granted, back in the day, Skype did go on the bookshelf. I took my daughter and showed her the thing I said about her in the front of the book, and that was cool and all, but there aren't bookstores anymore for the most part. So you're not getting your security book on the shelf. So really self-published is the moral of the story there. I also raced mountain bikes. I used to be a road bike racer in California. I didn't win crap. I was the guy that broke away with a bunch of people and tried to stay away, and the peloton chased me down every time. But in mountain biking, I won or placed every event because of all that experience. So the experience builds upon one thing or another. And I love going over rocks and all that stuff, so that was probably why I was good. So I left HP and went to work for the state of Texas. I figured after all that stupid consulting work and all that effort and everything, I just wanted an 8 to 5 job, get involved with the community, because HP had to review everything I did. I had to get VP permission to write the books with Skype, yada, yada, yada. By the way, those Skype books probably paid for half my divorce, so it was awesome that I wrote them. But yeah, I went to work for the state of Texas comptroller. Susan Combs was the comptroller at the time. And I unfortunately found, people brought it to my attention, and then I researched it. And I had to call my boss, I am not kidding you, on April Fool's Day, the CISO, and tell him we just leaked 700,000 records from TxDOT, TEA, and 2 other agencies, et cetera, that people were able to download, and we have definite evidence that they downloaded or tried to download some of them. So I had to report that, and of course what they do, they fired my boss, the CISO, threw him under the bus, right? That's what happens when you're CISO, you get thrown under the bus. Made me interim CISO. Well, what'd that teach me? If you find something and report it, you're gonna get fired. Well, I'm done with the government work. That's all, folks. I am not doing government work, so don't ask me to go work for a government agency again. And then in the course of doing that, I also joined the ISSA Austin chapter as a VP with Brian Engel. Got involved with the local community, trying to help get the InfoSec community in Austin, which, we had meetings of 20. They're now well over 100. They're at a theater now. They've really grown a lot over the years. I left to go start what's known as Security B-Sides. If you're not familiar, I started the Austin, Texas entity. So that included, tomorrow I'll wear the shirt. You'll see me with the red shirt. It kind of looks like Sam's, actually. It's kind of funny. Same logo, location, but we started all 4 of these cons as one entity. We were the largest B-Sides entity. So I did that for about 7 years. And oddly enough, there's Cindy. I don't know why they're all on the phone. There's Michelle. Cindy ran San Antonio. There's my partner, Michelle, who ran Dallas. There's Jason Street with the pizza I bought him, because he has a unique diet. If you don't know Jason Street, Diet Pepsi and pizza. And there's Justin in the back for EFF. So there was my crew that helped me out in Austin. If you haven't really considered joining in a security organization, I highly recommend it. You're going to meet so many people. I know David Balcar, for example, in the room here, and AJ from the ISSA meetings, but David and I have presented at many conferences. He's presented at Besides Austin, and probably several of my other cons. I guess you've probably been presented all of them. But this is the connections you make. The connections you make help you meet people that can help you write tools or help you get your idea maybe off the ground. Josh Sokol in Austin with his buddy Matt Tesaro ended up writing a tool, and he now has retired from his day job and is doing his risk management tool full-time now. Right? So these connections you make at these conferences and these orgs, I highly tout them as being valuable, not only to you, but your resume. I'll more likely hire you if you show something on this and go to conferences. I presented at Matt Tesaro's UT class, UT Texas, and there are about 75 kids in the class. I asked how many had been to the local B-Sides or LastCon conference, not a single hand. And I told Matt afterwards, I wouldn't hire a single one of these. Free entry to these conferences, and they didn't go. So conferences like this, community organizations, volunteering like USecCon folks do that are here, thank them, because it's a tough job. But it's great for your resume. And then after that, my CISO boss left. He said, hey, come help me. I'm working for this gaming company. We have lots of tools. I need help. They had been compromised, and so we got funding, and we got all this stuff, and I need help. And I know you're sick of the cloud company you went to work for. I left that out because that was there a year, and I literally left because I tried to implement MFA and Amazon back in 2009 or whenever it was, and his response, I am not kidding you, we don't need that. I gave my resignation and left 2 weeks later. So I went to work for the gaming company, and that's where I ran into a serious threat actor known as WinNTI. The WinNTI Group's a Chinese-backed APT-17 Blackfly, several other names. They were heavy in the gaming environment. Who knew that fake gold is worth real money? They would break into accounts, steal accounts, sell the treasures and whatnot on the open market and eBay and other gaming sites for real money, and they made a killing. My partner pontificated that he thinks the WinNTI Group was pre-testing Chinese state-sponsored malware. It's that kinds of things they did. For example, malware that loaded without any auto runs or persistence mechanisms, just side load, just place files in a box, wait for them to load, infect the box. Very hard to find with any tool set even today, unless it's a known. And these are all unique pieces of malware. So they did all kinds of cool things. And so I started writing some scripts to find this stuff. How do I find a tool that's on this box that's not Windows? Compare box A to box B, right? Go through all the logic that we did. And so I ended up writing a bunch of stuff. And one of the things we found is, why were the Chinese getting by all the security tools? What did they know that we didn't know? For example, Tripwire. Tripwire samples, it's a FIM, it's a file integrity monitoring. It samples the writing of files every 7 seconds. If you were to look at how much data you can drop on a box, detonate it, and delete it in 7 seconds, you're talking gigabytes upon gigabytes upon gigabytes. And we're only talking 250, 300K that we need to actually load. So Tripwire never saw these payloads because they're only looking at what's on disk. If it's not on disk, FIM won't see it. So we found that flaw. We found several others. We found some whitelisting flaws that they were getting around as well. If you sign a package at MSI, all the things automatically within the MSI are trusted by a whitelisting solution, formerly known as Bit9. We found that flaw and shared that with them. We found them using certificates that had expired but were not revoked, that were in their approved OK status. So that means you're finding files and you go to the Bit9 repo and it says, it's good, and it really wasn't. It was involved in the attack. We shared that with them. They refused to acknowledge it, called them out at a con, and they got really angry with us. So yeah, that's some of the stuff we found. Why did our security tooling fail us? Which, again, what point does this make? I needed a tool to fill the gaps because these security tools are failing, right? And so this is where this stuff started happening. The data we had on WinNTI and all the things we caught with Splunk and BigFix allowed us to put the details enough, even to the point of the domains they registered. They were using the backup email address when you used to be able to read most of it on Google Gmail addresses. So they would Gmail a resume to, let's say, HR. HR would click on it, infect the company. The backup email address was used to register a whole bunch of domains. So we had Mark Monitor, we were able to look that up. So we put all this together. Every attack over a 2-year period, we put all the links together, figured out how everything was associated. Something was, linked in every way. All the malware they wrote, the domains they used, the name of the register, the address of the register, the IP addresses, the hosting companies. Somewhere they all had a connection. We put all that together and said, here, Bureau, please go share this. Well, why do you want us to share this? Because the guys are installing their installers of other games, and they're triggering our alerts because the installers are infected of the other game companies. So we would reach out to our colleagues at other game companies and said, we got to talk. That led to a big powwow in Vegas where everything was shared, yada, yada, yada. But again, this is an example of the kinds of things that happen to you as you go down your InfoSec journey. Why did this stuff happen? What kind of stuff did we write? So this little idea of looking for this malware started becoming this big script that I ended up writing. We also had BigFix. Anybody here use BigFix? Know of BigFix? It's probably the best security tool you know nothing about. Its query language and alerting capability allows you to create queries in ways you can never do with a log or a SIM, because you can actually go out to the system and say, hey, do you have any registry keys that are large, or have any registry keys in this location, or give me a list of binaries in only these 2 folders at this depth. Lots of stuff like that that allows you to go find hidden payloads. Better, the Chinese would take away administrator rights from the malware, and so we couldn't delete it. Well, BigFix runs a system, so we went and took ownership of the files, gave it back to an administrator account, and then were able to remediate the boxes. So BigFix was hugely important here in regards to being able to deal with it. But also the features that exist allowed us to think, maybe we can integrate some of those, right? And so yeah, that's my second favorite tool, is BigFix or equivalent. Tanium might be there, but a different kind of tool. Yeah. OS query is similar, right? Yep, to get your feet wet. Anything that'll ask a question of the system. So OS Query, written by Facebook on the Linux and Mac side, they outsource it for the Windows side. It's not as powerful. Haven't used it in a few years to see if they've improved it all. But OS Query is similar. Tanium would be similar because they wrote BigFix and went on to do, they had to do it totally differently. I don't like Tanium because they pollute the logs with VBS and PowerShell stuff. Exactly what you're looking for, the bad guys doing. But yes, OS Query would be an example of asking the system a question and getting an answer back. You know, do you have a file in this location? I found a piece of malware. It doesn't matter what the name is, but I know it's in this folder location. Do you have anything? And that's kind of the questions you want to ask, right? EDR was just getting started. The original Carbon Black, no longer, you know, to be rest in peace, Carbon Black. We were using that as well. Again, didn't do us a lot of good because it recorded everything that was going on in the trace logs and spitting it out. It was too much data. It didn't have a way to filter out known goods. And so I created this serious batch file, and this was the beginning of Tin the Toolman's new tool. It worked. I found all the hidden malware with this stupid script, and we were able to start our remediation process with that stupid script. So originally I called it the Sniper Forensics Toolkit. The Sniper Forensics was a term that the IBM guys, Trustwave, were using back in the day for some of their ways of not doing forensics. They called it Sniper Forensics. That's a different talk of live IR, triage, sniper forensics. But again, a utility that you can run on a local system to look for all kinds of details, right? Not an EDR, but something I can push out to the box. I had BigFix or any other configuration manager tool. Push to the box, look for stuff, and away we went. This ended up morphing into a solution. My buddy said, let's try to build something in the cloud. We signed up for the Microsoft Kickstart program. They gave us all kinds of access for nothing for 2 years. Unfortunately, of course, of doing that, they made a bunch of changes. Databases that performed really well were changed in such a way they no longer performed well, and they wanted to charge us, you know, $1 gajillion to try to up the power as they were building out Azure. So that was a failed project. It just didn't work too well, but it did get in there. It's Malware Sentinel, which is in the timeline. The cheat sheets were born because in the course of all the stuff that we were collecting, sending into Splunk, Microsoft released an update to Vista logging, which is now known as the advanced logging features that are now in all Windows. And that information, we happen to have a bunch of admins that upgraded to Windows 8, and so a lot of the admins had that. I enabled this logging because, again, the CIS benchmarks in the you know, terrible logging that Windows does by default. I went around and turned everybody's logging up, and the detail level I got about WinNTI was off the charts, and that's how the cheat sheets were born. Because if you just turn this on, basically this is equal to an EDR if you throw it in a SIM. Right? All the data's there, you just got to create queries and alerts, and you're doing exactly what EDR is doing, is you're looking for this combination of word opening PowerShell or whatnot, and you can create those in Splunk or whatever, LogScale, or any other SIM if you have the capability in their language and you have the data, more importantly. And so, yeah, number one tool is SIM in my book in regards to what you have to be a good detection expert or threat hunter, and it by far is the best tool, whatever good log management tool you want to pick. And there's the cheat sheets, the current list of them. There's a whole bunch of them, right? There's the PowerShell one. There's the CrowdStrike LogScale one. That's new, been converted from the Humio that they bought. And then I do have a MITRE ATT&CK I need to update with the sub-techniques. We have LogMD's attack stuff as well. I set out actually looking at how much stuff with the way I do things can I detect in the original MITRE ATT&CK release, not the sub-technique that they released. But how many things could I detect with either just plain Windows logs that are done right, or the LogMD data that I got? It turned out I had over 80% coverage. That blew my mind. I never thought I'd get to 60. Okay, I've done a couple talks on this subject. You can probably find them on links to those on my website. But yeah, MITRE ATT&CK and good logging, you'll get a lot of coverage, just so you know. So 2015, have I said how much I love BigFix? I love BigFix, right? It's the best security you'll never heard of. I mentioned that before. And ByFix, that's not this BigFix, typo. That's a copy I gave him too, so that's my fault. Right, and so how can I find this stuff quickly? So we created all these weird, complex queries. We worked the BigFix team. We actually helped talk to some clients of theirs when they got bought by IBM to try to explain the success we were having and how it could be used as a security tool, and really thought IBM should launch this as a security tool. They never did, and they got sold off. It's run by somebody else. I don't know the status of it now. It's still available. But I would hate to have been the one to go reimage hundreds of gaming servers that were all compromised. Hundreds. because once Chinese got into the corporate environment, somebody, dumbass, opened a hole to the game console environment, and then somebody opened a hole from that into the gaming server environment, and they got everything with all this fancy malware. The malware they put on the first workstation, patient 0 and patient 1, was different than what they put on all the workstations, which is different than they put all the corporate servers, which was different than they put on all the game servers. So we didn't just deal with one piece of malware. They knew how to layer this stuff, right? And so we used BigFix to look for the stuff. We could look for keys being changed. We could look for the value of service keys to see if they had changed service key values, because they were doing that. So they didn't add a service, they just changed where the service was pointing to, because they picked some service that didn't mean anything and pointed it to their malware, right? So I started going through this and saying, wow, these are really good things. Let's take advantage of the things, right, that I used and more, make it easier to use so I have less tools to use and work smarter, not harder, right? That's our goal with anything we do in InfoSec, work smarter but not harder. You know, also, all tool output should be SIM consumable. Now, does it mean every system in your environment? Well, yeah, if you have that kind of budget. But if no, when you're doing an incident, you can spike those licenses for the time you're investigating and drop it back down, and you're likely going to be okay. So I do want the ability to take that incident data, throw it up into a SIM, and be able to look at 100 systems at once instead of 100, CSVs, right? So wouldn't it be nice if there was a tool to look for things that we manually configure queries and alerts and BigFix and Splunk? From that, the complicated script that I talked about that we made to find the WinNTI stuff, LogMD was born after the failed Sniper Forensics Toolkit and the failed Malware Sentinel project. So I and a buddy, we set out and said, let's turn this into a tool. This is something that we can use. And again, it's a Windows Incident Response tool. That's my focus area. Standalone tool, just an exe. Doesn't have any dependencies. There's some text files you can use for configuration and some allow and deny stuff. And again, details EDR could not provide. I did a presentation at when I worked for the advisory board that got bought by Optum. We evaluated 16 different EDRs. And I think my number one slogan during the whole testing period was, man, does EDR suck. So our litmus test was take SecureWorks IDS alerts, take the malware that we harvested from that alert that morning or that week, it has to be fairly recent, and then fire that off against the EDR in however methods. We had 3 methods. We had one, Word document, let the user click on it, kind of typical infection environment that we all know about. 2, the box is already infected and you put the EDR on top of it. And 3, APT actor, push the malware to the box and wait for the normal cycle of rebooting, right? So we built labs and systems and tested with a few users. The details to remediate do not exist in EDR, any of them, not even close. LogMD had 80% more details than EDR did. Like not a single EDR looks for registry keys that have large values in them where payloads are hidden. When NTI did this, Covter does this, several threat actors will hide stuff in the registry or the WMI database. This is something they don't look at. I don't understand why. It's been well documented. And so that was one of the side effects of testing the EDR stuff is LogMD provided me remediation and details that allowed me to build better queries and put in requests for change in our EDR product that we ended up buying. The Arthur stuff was specifically written, the Arthur project, some stickers up here, open source GitHub project. It's a PowerShell script, modify it to your heart's content. It was written just to provide a way from Kanza to actually push out a tool like LogMD that dumps CSVs or text files and pull back that actual result in the proper format that it was designed in. Kanza, you ran PowerShell and you got back text results in PowerShell. It didn't give you the native results. That was a flaw. Because if I want to consume that into SIM, I can't. There's a requirement right there, right? That's when you're building a tool, think about the end result of your solution. Where do you want it? How do you want to see it, etc. The GUI in this case would be the CSV being consumed by SIM or Excel, of course, right? And so that's what it was created for, just to push that out in any other tools or like a CAPE solution, the CAPE tool that Kroll makes, that kind of thing. But one of my buddies at a big consultancy has since left. He had made some changes to that. I reached out to MS Administrator and got him to give me some help with the archiving capability. Another size limit with PowerShell remoting. You can only send a file so big, so we had to have archiving to be able to send bigger payloads and get back bigger payloads. And so that stuff was put into Arthur. So then COVID happened, right? Slowed things down for all of us, as we know, stupid COVID. And, again, what I started doing is promoting malware management. So how do I know what to look for in regards to incident response or SOCs or, threat hunting or creating alerts or testing my EDRs or creating a new query in a solution or knowing my gaps, what I don't have after I've mapped everything to MITRE ATT&CK, etc. That's called malware management. I'll literally take reports from any security breach that has occurred or incident that occurred. Breach has to be declared by CXO, so don't use that word unless you're legal or CXO of the company, or until they publicly said we've been breached. But yeah, the idea here is you read these reports, and in those, another talk I give, again, it's at Malware Archaeology that I gave at a couple cons already, is I walked through just 3 random things I got in a couple weeks. I got these reports, I went through them, and I said, what in these reports can I detect? What is it that the cheat sheets would show, because they're calling these sophisticated attack hits, blah, blah, blah. And I walked through some random stuff. One was a Ukrainian attack, another one was a web shell, another one was a Russian-based attack against somebody. And I just said, look, I don't have anything to do with these. I didn't investigate these, but I'm just going to see what the reports say. And they're calling these, in the titles, they're calling these, the first paragraph, sophisticated. No, they're not. There were so many things that were detectable in there, it's not even funny. So the cheat sheets, right? And so I did a lot of that because things were slow, and I did some remote cons, and so I presented like that. But we did progress from LogMD, and now we're about to release FileMD. So this is a static file analysis tool. So what's the problem I was trying to solve? With FileMD, the problem I was trying to solve was I needed the details of an infection of malware or what a threat actor did in the box. Again, logging is a different piece of it. LogMD is not just logging. It reads registry. It reads WMI database, SHRM databases, all kinds of stuff. But I needed those details so I could understand what happened on the box so I could create better queries. I'm a blue teamer. I'm an incident responder. I'm a threat hunter. What I see in this box, his box, number 1, I have to find on all your boxes. So if I can do a good job finding artifacts on this box, maybe of those 10 items I found, I can create 4 queries to find if any of these other boxes are infected, right? That was the problem I was trying to solve. LogMD's output into a SIM totally solves that problem. So what's the other problem I have? I found a file. What do I know about it? Is I think this file is funky. It's in a weird spot. Is it just a stupid vendor file? FileMD is a static file analysis tool. This looks at the file, statically analyzes the way it's crafted, and tells you it's malicious, suspicious, or good or low. Right? It gives you basically a scoring mechanism. All the metadata that's in there, how many times the file's been signed, and we also have now a plugin with SigCheck where we use the SigCheck cert validation that will provide that in the report as well as being able to then ask the item to look up all the falsely signed or unsigned binaries or just the ones that triggered suspicious and malicious and say, go to VT and give me the scores, right? Give the analyst as much as they can. And all this came out of the way WinNTI had impaled the box by dropping binaries in the Windows folder and the WBM folder that nothing could detect when it shut down and started up, but yet I knew were there, and that's the idea is how do I know that file's bad? Not everything's signed, unfortunately. Just look at any of the NVIDIA and other crap I came across in all this testing of FileMD. Lots of files just don't have the data. They fail to do metadata information, name a company, name original file, all the stuff if you right-click properties you can see in Windows. And so we wanted a way to quickly do that. I can scan just the C users folder. If you want to know where to start looking for an incident, C users, home root in Linux, right? That's where mostly the stuff will start. 80, 90% of it will start in the user context folder structure. So can I scan just C users, level 5 deep? So C users, or C doesn't count, users, Bob, app data, local, temp, and the subdirectory below that. 5 levels or 6 levels. Scan just up to that point and let me know all the files in there and whether or not any of them are crafted poorly or something I need to investigate. Without having to do all the other LogMD stuff, I can just look at the files. Or I did LogMD, found some stuff, and now I want to go look for those files. Or did they push it to other boxes? I see a lot of this in my investigations. Threat actors will get stuff, push it out to boxes, and not detonate it. Because we catch them over here, and then we forgot to clean it up over there. Remember the whole big fix is, I found it on him, but I got to find it on all of you, or verify it's not on all of you. And so these are the problems I was trying to solve. So how can I quickly do that as fast as possible? And so this new tool has been born out of those needs. So why share? So you can see what I did and craft your own next generation tools. You'll hear those guys tell you, next generation SIMs, okay. Make it your story. It can be a simple script you post on GitHub that solves a problem, but you'd be surprised how much that might get downloaded. And it might lead you to working with a colleague you meet at a conference, right? And talking at lawyer things that allow you to come up here and speak. All these things feed into it. Write a book, so which means I can write real well, in theory. And so this all helps your journey. I highly recommend you do all of it. So someday I'm going to retire. Hopefully in the next 10 years, I'm done. I will probably still be involved in cons and everything else, and obviously my tool venture. But it's going to be your turn. You guys have got to step up and do this. There's a lot of tools, a lot of vendors I don't recognize. David and I both are like, who are these people? There's a lot of opportunity to come up with these ideas, whether it's in DevOps, whether it's in AppSec, doesn't matter where. I got a whole list, a slew of Austinites that we have created tools. We got HD Moore, we got Josh, we got Marcus Carey. There's lots of us in Austin, oddly enough, that create tools. And because prevention tools continue, if you want to know how bad it is, go to avtest.org and look at how much malware is created every year. It goes back like 10 years. And you can see that all these tools that have been invented is still doing this. And the quantities of malware is increasing because these guys have learned how to morph their wares and change it very rapidly. So the quantity now is it's not hard for them to overcome. They can produce 1,000 iterations of malware in seconds. And so prevention tools just keep failing us. So we really have to focus on detection. That's the problem I'm trying to solve, is I want to go detect stuff. I want to find the details that these other tools just don't do. That's the problem I'm trying to solve. And you all will have your own slants on what you want to do. Right? And when I say fail, when these detection tools fail, I mean bypass, blocked, disabled, failed in whatever way. For example, I got around FireEye by simply, as an administrator, run a system utility that's freely available, used by hackers all the time, pen testers, that gives me system rights that allowed me to go in and put a firewall rule in or get administrative rights to then put a firewall in that just sent the FireEye traffic to Never Neverland. And I'm not even a good pen tester. That's David's job. But if I can break EDR tools like this that easily, the bad guys are doing it. That's what we learned from WinNTI. They know how every one of your tools works and how to get by them. If you don't think they do, you're fooling yourself. You really need to understand those gaps. These are the problems I was trying to solve. Is how can I check a box and validate it was clean because I don't trust my security tools. All right? So again, I say it's a necessity because these things we know. And guess what? AI's coming. Right? Not today. Trust me, it's going to take a few years, but AI is coming. And so, these are things you're going to have to prepare for and be involved with because that is a big opportunity for everybody in this room. He's getting ready. I see. So I share, right? Hopefully we get the juices flowing, give you ideas, give you other options. Again, blue team rules. I'm a blue teamer. Make you want to work with us wherever I end up going, or David, if you want to work with David. Get an education path or DFER, if there's any DFER folks in here. The more you know, the better decision you make, the places you will go. Yay, Dr. Seuss. I think that book may be banned. I'm not really sure. I know some are. In Texas, anyway. I don't know. And the faster, of course, you'll get answers to the work you do. So why run the local tool? DFER. Disk images are getting big. Memory images are getting big. So I can't do 100 systems as fast as I used to. I need an easier way to do it. I call it live triage or live IR. The idea here is do it very quickly, right? You got to have write blockers. That slows down the copy process. You got to make 2 copies, yada, 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 right? So let's focus on detect, and malicious discovery is what I call it, which is the MD in our tool sets. Again, here's the malware discovery, basic analysis, advanced, reverse engineering, traditional forensics. Focus here is my problem that I'm trying to solve. Get really good at it, right? That's what I'm trying to solve. Focus your skill, get great at this first, and then the others will be easier. SANS training pretty much is all the right, just so you know. But first, whenever we have an event, we have to do triage, right? Where does it hurt? And so there's 2 primary conditions. Has the system been touched or has it not been touched? We need to answer those very quickly on 1, 3, 30, 100, or 1,000 systems, right? Install an EDR takes time, can be very expensive if you don't already have one, or you might install a consultant's tool, whatever that may be. If it's CrowdStrike, you're going to have to install CrowdStrike Falcon, etc., right? Sometimes not very quickly to deploy. You may not have it everywhere. I call it the 3 C's. Configuration, coverage, and completeness. If you don't get the agents everywhere, and I've investigated many that don't have the agents everywhere because they didn't do a very good job of completeness, to go back and say, did we get the agents everywhere? So that's a big problem, but that's a challenge in the environment. You miss one back door, and the bad guys are going to get back in. And again, it's another agent, so maybe you don't want to run another agent. I've had Twitter conversations with some well-known folks that we went over I don't want another agent in my box. I've already got 20, do an inventory asset, blah, 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 blah. And 3 security agents, yada, yada. They make my stuff perform like crap. And so, again, the problem I was trying to solve is not have another agent. I can run a scheduled task if need be, right? Hell of a lot smaller than terabyte and gigabit images and obviously in the memory space. Cape's another tool, right? That's another push-out tool. If you're not familiar with Cape, that's another idea, right? Or you can use batch you can use a PowerShell script. I don't care how you do it. Arthur, SSCM, Intune, Copilot, BigFix, whatever. However you want to push out your tool suites. Think about how you will start and deploy these tools of yours, and then how the results will get consumed, all right? And so why do we develop tools? Again, we like bright, shiny things. It makes us go, ooh, ah. No, because we're trying to solve a problem. In my case, I'm trying to look for that malware stuff, right? I'm a malware archaeology. I want to find that stuff. So, since we're looking for this, well, let's look for that. Ooh, and that. Oh, and this too. And that. Oh, that. Oh, what about this? And so forth and so on. And that's how your tool's born, right? As you start putting these ideas together. Things that I do not like about many freely available tools, so please don't do this, is dependencies. Almost every Python tool I've ever tried has a dependency that's been updated, and that update no longer works with the dependency that's required for the tool, and you can't get it anymore, yada, yada, yada. Really irks me. Plus, Python's not on every Windows box. .NET stuff, Eric Zimmerman's tools, Easy Tools, has .NET dependencies. I've reached out to him a couple times where some of the tools did not work for the version it says to use. He's like, well, go upgrade out your box. I'm like, I have 75 servers to upgrade. Mr. Customer, can you please upgrade 75 servers of .NET before I can do the investigation with this tool? Yeah, please pay attention to dependencies that are involved. And again, Python's not everywhere in a box. It's not a Windows system. PowerShell is. So if you're going to lean somewhere, I would say in the Windows environment, lean more PowerShell than anything else. But again, if you should have it, like the .NET required for PowerShell 5 or above, then you should do it. Right, but the keep your .NET upgraded, which happens almost every couple months. If you're doing an investigation and I can't use Easy Tools until I upgrade .NET, I can't use the tool. That's the reality of it, right? And no new agents, bugs, agents. Should I mention the Friday event that happened a couple months back with a big company? You get the gist there. That was so. Enough about that. I wrote this before that event happened. Again, LogMD's requirements were standalone, no dependencies, some configuration text files which are optional, created in Visual Studio, LogMD, Golang, FileMD, and ProcessMD, outputs in CSV or text, easily consumable into SIM or whatever other tool you want to do, not JSON. I say way too much JSON consumed by SIM, and it's not properly normalized, and it's a pain to write queries against, so I don't personally like it. But I do a lot of simming, and a lot of you probably don't. So, but there may be a JSON guru that says, oh, just do this, this, and this, and it's just a learning curve. But I like low learning curves. CSV, all the headings are right at the top. Easy to consume. Files or reports are sized properly. I like to use MFTs, master file tables in Windows, and there's not a single tool that spits an output that you can open in Excel that's not too big for Excel. It's like, why did you write an output that's too big for the tool that reads the output to consume? And so we're looking at rewriting an MFT tool for IR as well, because it's pretty much only in the forensic space and really good would be a good IR tool. And so think about these things, right? Consumable log management, utilize the tools we already have. There's the Notepad++ reference from earlier when David said Notepad. It's Notepad++ because I do compares. Control T in Excel is worth its weight in gold when you're looking at a few systems, and diffs and Notepad++ and the plugins they have are cool, if it's not compromised by some add-on DLL, as it's happened in the past, right? If you want an agent and someone says, I want it to be an agent, schedule a task. Just tell it to run every hour or whatever. Solve that problem later. It's not a problem I need to solve right now. Or use PowerShell and routing to push it out, Arthur, whatever tool you want. But take into account MITRE ATT&CK. It is your best friend. MITRE ATT&CK allows David to write a report and doesn't tell me anything about what he did. Mention a MITRE ATT&CK item, technique, ID, or sub-technique in a report, and I can write a query or alert on that, right? So that's the advantage there. And again, of course, we need XDR and EDR. It's absolutely it's on my list of top 4, but we need more details than it can provide. That's the problem I was trying to solve, and all that. And of course, Excel is wonderful. Evaluate your logging. So the cheat sheets. LogMD for free, -A, will evaluate the scoring of your box and your Active Directory to the cheat sheets, and you spit this out, and it's free, and it's Security 101. And so, again, a problem I'm trying to solve is get everybody to do some better, decent, basic Security 101 logging. The requirements are straightforward, right? Threat actors morph. I practice malware management. I read what other people have found and done. We heard one of them today at the talk earlier where he talked about some of the new techniques that Lapsus had done. I've dealt with Lapsus as well, so I get where he's coming from. And that's the kind of information I'm consuming to decide what goes into my tool or what kind of gaps we need, as he had to do from getting breached by Lapsus and the way they went about it. And I still work this way 10 years later. I still do malware management today. It is the best way. People ask me in interviews, how do you keep up? And they tell me their way of keeping up. I'm like, thank you very much. What blogs do you read? What security newsletters do you read? But I still practice this way. And I did a con talk. You can go see it at the malware archaeology presentations on malware management and going over that. So, and again, tool must have, think about allow Carbon Black originally, all the data, and you had to find the needle in the haystack. No. Think about allow and exclude lists when you make security tooling. It is the biggest flaw I see in most security tools. They give you all this data, but they don't filter it down or give you a way to filter huge chunks of data. In Splunk, it would be like wildcard, not this, to get rid of all the directories that have version informations of GoToMeeting. There'll be a dozen of them on your C user directory. The stuff David, I'm sure, likes to use to compromise a box, GoToMeeting. But it works for log management, right? Lookup lists is a great example of that. It's a very important feature security tools are awful at. Lookup lists or include or exclude lists. Custom configuration file, we use them in LogMD. We allows us to set what kind of PowerShell stuff we want to look at. What event IDs do we want to record depending on the version? What special characters we want to look at and count for obfuscation, signs of obfuscation. It's actually easier to find obfuscated malicious code than it is to find non-obfuscated malicious code. So please, threat actors, do your stuff obfuscated, because I can just count the characters and find you. Of all the funky characters you have to do to break your code up and make it unreadable. So yeah, and again, what folders do we look in exe and DLLs in, and what YARA rules we might want to run, right? These are configuration files we use. So configuration files maybe like how you deploy an agent to the masses and not go to 100% of them and kill the entire environment. Just out of, just saying, that's something they didn't have. So yeah, wildcards are crucial. I've got to have a way to exclude large amounts of data. Not the droid I'm looking for right now. I'll come back to it later because I kind of know it's over here, but I got all this noise. I got to get rid of it. You got to have a wildcard to say, go away. Sentinel did not have that. The last time I did a Sentinel threat hunt gig, that drove me crazy because I have SQL Server versions up to kazoo, 20 or 30 of them in this environment, and trying to exclude them was hard. It shouldn't be that hard, right? Similar names, right? All that tool features. So in summary, I'm close. The first time I gave this talk,
at the end of the day,
I'm good.
It doesn't matter, right?
I'll go back to Austin.
I know we've got a bunch of questions as well.
But now that you know why, come up with your own ideas. Practice malware management definitely is a to-do. Maybe come work for us wherever I end up working, or David or anybody else in the room. And share your stuff with the community. Do these kind of talks. If you think you don't have, I guarantee everybody in this room can do some sort of security talk on something. Either your getting hired experience, your resume experience, I don't care what it is. Man, please submit. Just the experience to submit talks, getting a refusal, and saying I'm going to do better next time, etc. It's valuable, trust me. So please do that. Learn things. You do things differently. She's going to think differently. Women on teams are phenomenal for me because we just think so differently and we can solve problems better. So the team, right? So think about that. And that's all of you guys here can think differently than I will. I'm an old guy. I'm not a boomer. I'm just after a boomer. But millennials and boomers, if you watch Top Master Chef, yeah, completely different realms of cooking. We cook differently, so you all think differently than I will, and you will come up with some cool tools. Just look at the success the Austinites have had. But yeah, one day you can give a talk like this. So there's where you can find us. You can take a picture. There you go. And there's always Hallway Con. You can hit me up after this and tomorrow as well. I'll be wearing a red shirt that looks like Sam and Mike's with the B-Sides logo. And this will be on SlideShare, so you can download it. And some of the resources I mentioned are in here. There's Eric Zimmerman's .NET dependent tools, and this is where you can find me, and I'm done. All right, I got to cut 5 minutes off this talk.
Oh, that's fantastic. Can we thank Mike for being here?